This pipeline thing is the biggest issue in Iowa.
The pipeline infrastructure is specifically designed to transport CO2.
It's just all about power, control, all greedy, money.
Billions and billions of dollars.
There's 90,000 miles of CO2 pipeline projected for the United States.
You better get out of the way because it's going to knock you over.
And we know that there are ruptures and we know that there are leaks.
It is a mass failure of the pipeline.
They found them in their vehicles passed out and foaming at the mouths.
Iowa is ground zero for these projects.
We don't want you on our land.
They never tell us the truth.
It could kill you.
The question is, whose farm will it be? And what friend will it be?
I want to say something to you as a lifelong committed environmentalist. One of the biggest boondoggles of the Biden-Harris administration is a program called carbon capture and sequestration. It's advertised as a green project that will help with climate change, but it's far from green. In fact, it's dangerous, unhealthy, very expensive, and very bad for the environment. What it really does is to transfer wealth from working people to rich investors, costing taxpayers billions. This is exactly the kind of corrupt merger between government and industry that's ruining our country and destroying the middle class. It also discredits the environmental movement, which is not a good thing for anybody. Kamala Harris cast the deciding vote on this initiative, and she wants to build it nationwide.
My name's David Wiskus. I've farmed my whole life. It's satisfying to raising a crop and going through a drought or lots of rain. It's all in Mother Nature's hand. It's not me. I throw the seed out there and she takes over. And I have great respect for Mother Nature.
That's a radish?
I know. It's supposed to be, they call it a watermelon radish?
My name is Jessica Wiskus, and I'm from Lisbon, Iowa. I'm the daughter of David Wiskus.
See that corn? My corn's bigger than your corn.
I received a letter in the mail notifying me that our property was in the corridor of a proposed CO2 pipeline. And I was really interested in it when I received it because I had heard about the idea of carbon sequestration. And of course, I knew that this was touted as one of the ways to battle climate change. And so I thought, wow, okay, it's coming right here in Iowa. Let's see what this is about.
The United States leads the world in corn production, much of it grown by Iowa farmers. Ethanol plants buy about half that corn, which they ferment to make ethanol fuel. The process emits carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas often blamed for warming the planet.
Summit Carbon Solutions approached us and said they were interested in building a carbon pipeline to potentially lower our carbon score and to make us a greener company.
We can capture that CO2, we can compress it, we can put it in a pipe to be able to safely store that permanently and improve the environment.
The pipeline companies plan to transport the CO2 through pipes under extremely high pressure, 2,100 pounds per square inch. At that pressure, the CO2 will have the density of a liquid, but it'll move like a gas with less friction. Thousands of miles of pipeline will be buried under farms and private properties across the Midwest. The gas in that form is very, very corrosive, and the pipelines can easily be breached and rupture.
One night I got a phone call from a local farmer. Said, Steve, what the hell's going on with this CO2 pipeline they're wanting to put into Shelby County? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, bullshit. He said, I see it's not running through your farm.
If you agree to execute an easement with us, you agree to a price, then we pay that 100% up front.
Normally a big project like this, they sit down with you and months, if not years in advance, learn about your ordinances, concerns, where would be a good place to go or not a good place to go, how can we work together. I don't know why this would have been any different, but I'm getting the feeling it was done purposely.
My dad called me and said he got a strange letter in the mail. Would I like to come up and read it? I read through it and I was really puzzled because it didn't sound like anything that would benefit me. And why would you want to pump a gas to North Dakota and bury it in the ground? It just seemed like a project to nowhere. So it didn't set with me right off the bat. We have a legacy here on the farm, and we really want to protect that legacy. And I like the way they assume that you're going to approve this, because there's a paragraph at the bottom of this page that says, "We appreciate your involvement in this project. Our top priorities are to be transparent and to make sure we do the right thing for the landowners for the benefit of Iowa agriculture. We believe this project will positively impact farmer profitability and farmland values for decades to come." There's nothing in that paragraph that I agree with.
This man on the phone said, "I am with such and such a company, and we are here, and we're going to survey your land." My husband, Bill, and I own a farm in northwest Iowa. Bill loved the farm. That was his first true love. But then life kind of took a change, and he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Bill is now in the Iowa Veterans Home in Marshalltown. And the last thing he said to me is, "Please don't ever sell that farm. That farm has to go to our children." And I promised him that I never would.
Two companies, Summit and Wolf, want to buy 50-foot wide permanent easements on all farms in the path of their pipeline. That way they can dig trenches and bury their CO2 pipes. The companies also want to access additional land for construction and maintenance. They've pressured landowners to sign contracts to give them that land.
Your neighbor signed, you should sign too. Your neighbor thought it was a good idea, so it's got to be a good idea. I think some landowners that signed did not read the easement. But the thing of it is, once you sign the easement, you're in it up to your eyeballs. They have access to your property at any time, any day, 24 hours a day. And anyone they want to send to your property has access to your property.
This farm has been in our family for over 100 years. We're not even sure what size pipeline we have coming through. Okay, it's starting down there, close to where all that black dirt is, down by the tree. That's our wetlands. And it's coming diagonally all the way up through there, right down the middle, cutting the farm in half. So when Summit comes through anything that's on that side of the pipeline, we won't be able to get in and plant. Any landowner fighting this will tell you that they have sleepless nights.
Many farmers expressed indignation and grief about the destruction of some of America's prime agricultural production lands.
Land is a living, breathing thing. If you don't take care of it, it will die.
There's microbes and biomes and creatures that live in that soil. And once you disturb that fine chemical balance that's in the soil, it's never the same.
You really can never get it back exactly like it was.
It won't produce the crop as it originally has produced. And we have the risk to human lives.
What happens if something goes wrong?
It's just a matter of time until it leaks somewhere.
I have attended almost a dozen of these public informational meetings, and they never tell us the truth. Oh, it's just like the CO2 in a can of pop. This is a famous thing that they have said. It is not true. It is not true at all.
All we heard was a boom, like an explosion. And just a big mushroom cloud just went in the air. And I called my mother, I said, Mama, this pipeline done blew up. We on our way up there to get y'all. And we never made it.
Brother, he's on the floor right now. My friend, she's shaking. I don't know what's going on. My car stopped. It won't move.
When I heard that call, I took off that direction.
We're having citizens report shortness of breath and their vehicle stalling and not running in that area. At this point, I know that we've got to get responders to the area, but I don't have any idea what should be close to Satarsa that would be causing this.
I'm thinking by the time I get there, it's all gonna be on fire. Because I'm thinking that, it's natural gas or something like that.
One of my granddaughters fell out on the floor, and her face was just blood red. The more I went outside, the worse my breathing got. I got in my car, and it wouldn't start. It would crank, go dead, crank, go dead.
Started checking houses, and that's when I run across a couple, a man and a woman, but they weren't saying nothing. They just walking around holding a cell phone to their face. Said, hey, come get in the truck. There was no response from them. They just kept walking. It looked just like something you'd see in a zombie movie. It was so hard to breathe. We had gotten word that there were 3 young men in a car. And I went back in started looking for them. Unbeknownst to me, I was running into the worst part of it.
I'm hearing him going from totally coherent to less coherent, to where he's struggling and breathing and not making sense.
We were about 1,500 feet away from it. The car just shut off. It just shut off, just went dead. We didn't have time to open no doors or anything. And the next thing you know, we woke up at the hospital. Yeah, we were in about 3 hours. We were foaming at the mouth. The first responder said if he'd got there about 3 minutes later, we'd have been dead.
Nobody knew about this CO2. I learned that your car can't run in it and you can't breathe in it.
After the investigation, it was determined the rupture was caused by a land shift in the area. There's 9 miles of pipe between this point right here where the actual rupture took place and the emergency shutoff valve was. After the rupture and after the valve was shut, it continued to bleed off for about 4 hours.
My lungs were difficult before the explosion. I did not have to be on oxygen, like those tanks. After that, I've been on oxygen ever since.
Right after the explosion, I started suffering short-term memory loss, anxiety, like I'm having now. I can't focus. Like I said, I can't just focus on one thing. So I really don't deal with a lot of people.
"45 residents of the small town of Satasha, Mississippi were hospitalized the night the carbon dioxide pipe exploded. Unlike the CO2 in the air that we breathe, these pipelines are loaded with a highly pressurized form of carbon dioxide. It's an asphyxiant, and at concentrations as low as 10%, it's a suffocating poison. It can lead to convulsions, coma, and death. The company that built the pipeline, Denbury Gulf Coast, had never informed local emergency managers about how to respond to an explosion. Denbury officials later said that their computer models showed that a rupture posed no danger to nearby residents. It was later revealed that these computer models never included important factors like weather conditions and hilly landscapes.
So there's 2 ruptures that we know about. So here's the levels of strain. Right here is where the pipe goes under the road. Here's the fracture. So what happened here is you got a lot of rain and the ground moved. The ground moved so much that it's basically putting a strain right here.
The pipe underneath the highway cannot move either
up, down, sideways, or at all. So it's clamped there. So the rest of the pipe is at mercy of the soil that they put it in. So when it rained excessively for 2 months. So that's completely saturated. It created a great amount of shear right at that weld, and that's when it popped. And it's going to be a big white plume because it's freezing all the water vapor that it touches.
Conditions that led to the pipeline rupture in Mississippi are all too common in Iowa.
Drone footage capturing the extent of the damage in northwest Iowa as entire neighborhoods are now underwater.
On our farm, Summit wants to go through wetlands and highly erodible land. A big rain, anything, you'll wonder, is this time that this pipeline is going to leak?
There's about 5,000 miles of CO2 pipeline currently in the United States. An alarming 62 accidents have been reported in a 10-year period. Most of those ruptures occurred in unpopulated regions like eastern New Mexico. Now the industry is planning close to 100,000 miles of CO2 pipelines. This is something that would never happen in a free market economy. It's only happening thanks to billions and even hundreds of billions of dollars in tax credits from the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act.
The Inflation Reduction Act is also the most significant investment ever in climate change. Ever.
That money is just a giant subsidy to the methane industry and to big ag. In Iowa and neighboring states, these new pipelines will run near farms and homes and schools.
CO2, when it ruptures, when it's released, it would move like a water vapor fog. How far will it drift? Where did the rupture happen? What was it, on a hill? Well, all the CO2, regardless of temperature and wind, will move down in the valley. The folks that are in valleys, even miles from a CO2 pipeline rupture, could be in trouble.
That's a horrible danger because it's only a quarter mile away. It's at a higher elevation than I'm at. It would flow south through everyone else's property as well.
Even though there's clear evidence that the pipelines can explode, the pipeline companies have refused to provide residents with information on how to handle that kind of an emergency.
The companies themselves agreed that safety information should not be released to the public, should not even be released to emergency responders. When we brought this up, they cited, potential terrorist threats.
So how are your emergency response people supposed to respond to an incident if they don't know what will happen at the moment of the incident? And a lot of these cities and around here have volunteer fire departments. They are not prepared to deal with a CO2 incident.
Pipelines of this length, diameter, never built this close to cities, metropolis areas, never before of this magnitude. And the emergency response has to be massive. This is not something that they can even wrap their arms around. And they don't have any equipment at all. What about all of us? You're gonna bring all of our self-contained breathing, our oxygen tanks? If we're stuck in our car? I mean, we're gonna need to be pulled out of there and put in a mask right away.
And if there's a serious leak, the ambulance can get to the edge of the leak and then their engine stops. So like if I'm out in my field, I'm on my own.
And there's too many what ifs, and the ramification is dead people. Dead people.
After hearing from hundreds of witnesses, most of them opposed to the pipeline, the Iowa Utilities Board went ahead and approved the use of eminent domain for the project proposed by Summit Carbon Solutions.
The Iowa Board of Utilities gave Summit Carbon Solutions permission to build the project, including a plan to use eminent domain laws for the land.
The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States says the government cannot take your land without due process and just compensation. Under the eminent domain exception to that constitutional guarantee, the government can only take your land for a public purpose and never for profit by a private company.
Now, with that ruling, people are seeing wow, they could take my land for anything.
About 78% of Iowa residents are opposed to using eminent domain to build CO2 pipelines, according to a survey by the Des Moines Register, the state's largest newspaper.
Private companies should not be allowed eminent domain, and somehow it got through. Everybody needs to be concerned because it's not just our land here. It can be land in California or New York or anywhere, not just here, that they'll take your property for whatever they want.
If eminent domain is used for private profit, then it becomes reduced to simply one individual looking out for their own profitability over the future of an entire community.
Please welcome Bobby Kennedy to the soapbox stage.
How much is it worth to the oil industry over a 12-year period? $173 billion in taxpayer subsidies. And this pipeline will never be built. Thank you all very much.
Just the way this thing is molding together, it just looks like there's some under-the-table dealings or something going on.
There's been a lot of conflict of interest in the government because Mr. Rastetter, that owns Summit Carbon Solutions, contributes hundreds of thousands of dollars to our governor and other legislators as well.
I'm really struggling with what we're doing as a country, spending trillions of dollars because CO2 is supposedly the devil. And if it is, after trillions of dollars and trillions more to come with 90-some thousand miles of pipeline, tell me what the benefit is going to be to the climate.
The CO2 captured by these pipelines is a tiny drop in the bucket compared to the CO2 emitted nationwide. Opponents of the projects believe that the pipelines have a hidden purpose. Those pipelines just happen to end at the Bakken crude oil fields in North Dakota and the oil fields in southern Illinois. So the CO2 can actually be used to push out every last drop of oil that is stranded in the oil fields. So the purpose claimed for the pipeline by its proponents is to reduce carbon emissions, but in reality, it could actually increase the amount of carbon emitted.
Growing crops and nurturing the farm is something that you grow up with your entire life. And it's just part of you, it's just kind of in your soul. With the legacy that's part of this land, it's just natural to want to protect it.
I would like to say that we have worked really, really hard for our property, our land, and that it's our land. It's not your land. It's not your right to take what we have worked for. We want to leave it to our children with no easements, with no danger.
This is the most time-consuming fight I've ever had. I haven't gotten to spend the time with my grandchildren that I would like, but I'm doing it for them.
I think that if they put the project through Iowa, there'll be a cloud hanging over the state. And other states, when the project comes to their front door, will say, Iowa, why didn't you stop this?
This may be the way that the world works, but it's not going to work here because we are going to draw the line and we're going to say no.
I applaud the efforts of the people of Iowa who are fighting for the health and safety of their communities and their constitutional rights. Like many of us, they understand that we've been given an astonishing gift just living on planet Earth. They know that we need to honor and protect that gift. Battles that are being fought in Iowa today against the theft of public lands and agricultural lands by large industrial and financial interests is really a battle for the soul of our country. When we destroy nature, we diminish our capacity to sense the divine, to understand who God is, and therefore who all of us are as human beings and what our own capacity and potential is as human beings. And that's a sin not only against us, but against our children as well. Protecting the environment is a high priority for many of us on the Trump team, including President Trump. We agree that the most important environmental effort should focus on having clean air and water and healthy food and regenerated soils. If we're really concerned about climate change, the most important thing that we can do is to regenerate our soils. If we regenerate the soils in this country alone, it will push the net emissions of carbon back to the pre-industrial age. And Donald Trump and I are working for you in Washington. We'll put a stop to the deceptive schemes like this one. And we'll work to strengthen America's connection to the natural world.